Welcome to today's BJA Performance Management Best Practices and Performance Reporting for SAKI, JAG, and DCRA. My name is Kerwin Henderson, and I am the BJA TTA Specialist on our Planning, Performance, and Impact team. We are happy you have joined us today and are excited to present this training to you as you all progress through the October reporting period. So to briefly go over the agenda today, we will spend the first few minutes of today's presentation introducing, or for some of you, reintroducing our PPI team. We will then transition to a brief overview of performance management best practice and reporting for SAKI, JAG, and DCRA. We will then wrap up today with a Q&A session. And once again, we encourage you all to ask any and all of your performance management or program-related questions during the Q&A session. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you our Planning, Performance, and Impact team. The Bureau of Justice Assistance PPI team provides wraparound training and technical assistance on data collection and analysis to support grantees and federal staff from program inception to closeout. Our team consists of our team management, PMT task lead Allison Bodanza, and deputy task leads Jimmy Stai and Christina Mariscal, who are responsible for team management and client coordination. The data analysis and performance review team, which works with federal staff to develop and revise performance measures and is responsible for reviewing your data for accuracy. Our PMT help desk support, who are on the front lines and are responsible for responding to your needs and assisting with your reporting issues, site navigation, and account creation. And finally, the training and technical assistance team, which develops and conducts training for grantees and federal staff, similar to the training that you all are participating on today. Our TTA team also responds to user help desk inquiries and requests for coaching. I want to specifically bring attention to our TTA team, as we have the ability to respond to your individual inquiries and needs for training. My contact information as your TTA specialist will be available at the end of this presentation. If you have any questions about the TTA that we can provide, we are happy and available to assist you as you report your program data. With that being said, I'd like to transition to our first presenter today, my colleague Amy December, a senior research associate on our data analysis and performance reporting team, to talk about best practices and performance reporting. So without further ado, Amy, go ahead and you can begin presenting.
Thanks, Kerwin. Okay, so just to start, I'm going to talk a little bit about why we collect performance measures. So performance management and performance measures helps BJA and its grantees understand the progress towards key goals and objectives of your program. So we at BJA use these performance measures to identify successes and opportunities for, and potential areas for improvement, including trainings, technical assistance, and external messaging. We also use it to track grant activity and progress to inform decision-making. We use them to understand funding decisions and their impact on our strategic plan, including forming budgets, strategic plans, and future funding. This also enables BJA to respond to external requests about programs, such as congressional inquiries and research requests. And then lastly, it allows us to comply with the Government Performance and Results Modernization Act. However, performance measures can also benefit you as grantees. It can help you identify areas for improvement to focus your internal efforts for your program. It can also help you proactively request TTA and address challenges you may be experiencing as you implement your program. And then lastly, it can help you generate evidence of the program towards its larger program goals and help you enhance the resource advocacy for sustainability after your grant period ends. And so one useful tool when preparing for reporting are logic models. They're a versatile tool that helps depict the program, showing how inputs will result in certain desired outcomes. It can provide you a step-by-step guide that describes the theory behind why a program should work. It also serves as an outline for the program goals, objectives, and performance measures in a solicitation. So this example on the screen here is a logic model for a BJA program for body-worn cameras. And I'm going to use it as an example to highlight kind of the differences for each of these sections in the logic model. So the first section on the far left is the inputs. This can refer to your program resources. Examples of this would include grant funding, like where we ask about your program's funding allocations or what kinds of activities or personnel you're using your grant funding for. It can also include award administration, can talk about different partners and community participation. The second column, second section, is all about activities. These are actions that convert your inputs into outputs that eventually result in measurable progress towards your program goal. These can include things like trainings, meetings, partnership development, data analysis, and strategic planning. You can see some of the examples listed here. The next column is the outputs, which are products or services that are directly result from these actions. So for example, you can see the activities could be purchasing body-worn cameras. So your output would be the number of body-worn cameras assigned to new officers. Then finally, the outcomes can speak to the longer term, larger program goals. These are the associated outcomes that can be found in the outcomes section at the end of the performance measures questionnaire. So in terms of performance measure data collection, the questions in the performance measurement questionnaire fall in two main categories. The first is the program performance measures, which is usually quantitative data on the program activities funded by the grant award. An example of this type of question would be how many participants completed the program during the reporting period. These questions can be used to help us establish baselines, track performance against performance goals, and create a nationwide picture of numeric data for BJA programs. The second type of questions are narrative questions. These are qualitative, open-ended questions about your program goals, objectives, and more. These questions are meant to capture the full experience you're having with conducting activities associated with your BJA funds. And so the more information you provide, the better. So for example, a question in this area could be, what challenges did you face when completing your program goals during this reporting period? Narrative questions can give grantees a chance to express in their own words how their experience has been going conducting their program activities with BJA funds. Both categories are equally important for reporting, and you should take every possible measure to ensure the accuracy and integrity of your data when reporting. And so in terms of defining goals and objectives for your program, it's important to write well-defined goals and objectives to clarify your priorities and highlight criteria for success. So many of you have probably heard of the SMART mnemonic that helps walk you through important dimensions of good goals and objectives. That means they should be SMART, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. We recommend that you use the SMART mnemonic when you develop your goals to help clarify the scope of your priorities and to also reevaluate your goals twice a year to determine whether they need to be updated, and so that you can use data to help understand the progress you're making over the course of your grant and make corrections as needed. So this next slide presents the reporting schedule in terms of reporting data into the PMT. This table outlines the schedule and the type of data you'll be reporting for each period, when your reports are due into the system, and whether you'll need to upload your report into JustGrants as well. So the first column highlights the quarterly reporting periods. As you can see, from October to December 31st, January to March, April to June, and then July to September. The second column outlines what data are required during the reporting period. As you can see from the alternate information under the second column, you'll only report narrative questions in January, July, and at the last reporting period of grant activity, regardless of where that falls on the schedule when you're closing out your award. The third column is the due date for when you need to submit your performance measures, questionnaires, and the PMT. So you'll see there's usually about a month, a 30-day grace period between when the reporting ends and when that information is due in the PMT. And then finally, the last column indicates whether or not you'll need to also upload a report into JustGrants. One important note is that the last reporting period of the award requires the performance measures, the narrative questions, and the closeout questions. It's going to be due 30 days after your final reporting period, and you're also required to upload a report to JustGrants. And once you've submitted your data into the PMT, there is a series of data validation, verifications, and reviews that we go through. So we as a team focus on the data analysis and performance review. Our team is responsible for supporting BJA and reviewing and analyzing the data to confirm that it's reliable and valid. So BJA uses the data in the system when checking on grant activity and progress towards program goals, responding to audit requests, and identifying areas of successes and potential areas for improvement. The performance measures data goes through several checks during and after the submission in the PMT to ensure that it's reliable and valid. The first step is system validations. This is where the system that you report into will actually perform data validations and assistance while guiding you through answering the questions. It's also part of the grantee's responsibility and sub-grantee's responsibility to review the data while you're entering it to ensure that you're providing accurate information. The second step is the progress report review. This is where grant managers review your report to ensure that it's complete. The third step is analyst verifications. This is where our team reviews the data to identify any inconsistencies or irregularities. We work with our help desk team to reach out to you if there are any questions or corrections that are needed. And the fourth step is confirmation to ensure that the data entered is accurate. BJA also asks that grantees review data for accuracy before submitting to help minimize any changes that might need to happen later on in the process. And so in terms of what the performance measures are used for, we typically use the data to create a variety of reports, such as annual program reports, highlight reports, and grantee activity reports. These help provide a high-level analysis at the program level to highlight program accomplishments using both the qualitative and quantitative measures. And these reports are often posted on the BJA website and shared with a variety of audiences, including OJP and BJA leadership, Congress, and the general public. So these two screenshots are examples of our Justice Assistance Grant Program and the Body-Worn Camera Program reports where we've used the performance measures data before.
Thanks, Amy. Great job. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Adams. I'm the Senior Research Analyst on the PPI team for the SAKI program and also the Forensic Portfolio at BJA. My colleague Nicole and I are looking forward to working with you. We've prepared a quick overview of reporting issues and commonly raised questions we received during the submission periods that we'd like to address. If you'd like to schedule a meeting with Nicole and I in the future, please feel free to email us so we can support you and your site. Without further ado, Nicole, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Norvish. Thank you for joining us today. So we want to start with the goal of the SAKI program, which is to address the significant amount of unsubmitted sexual assault kits from various agencies in order to solve cases and provide resolution for victims. And the testing of these kits is not just important for the sexual assault cases they're related to, but it can also be important for uploading DNA profiles into the CODIS database to possibly link other cases or to known profiles. So we wanted to touch on some common things that we see in the data as we review and things that we want you to keep in mind while you're filling out the questionnaires. So the first is the number of inventory kits cannot be less than the number of kits sent for testing. So a kit should be inventoried before it is sent off to be tested. Next, the number of cases sent for testing shouldn't be less than the number of cases tested to completion. We understand that sometimes kits can be sent for testing in one reporting period, but not tested to completion until another, which could cause these numbers to fluctuate. And that's okay. If we reach out to you, just let us know that that has been the case for your lab. And lastly, if a case is determined to not require testing, a reason why needs to be identified in the report. One reason per case should be reported so that the sum of the reasons equals the number of cases that do not require testing. Next, I want to talk about CODIS. There are often questions we get about CODIS and data that we verify for CODIS, so we just wanted to provide you a few notes. The number of CODIS hits should equal the sum of the two hit categories for forensic hit and offender/arrestee hit. When you get a CODIS hit, it should fall into only one of these categories, so you'll report that accordingly. We also want to talk about the difference between cold hits and warm hit. A cold hit is where the DNA profile uploaded into the CODIS database hits to a person who was not previously identified as a suspect or person of interest, while a warm hit is where the DNA profile uploaded in CODIS hits to a person previously identified as a suspect or person of interest. Next, serial sex offender and non-serial sex offenders. An arrestee/offender hit should fall into one of these two categories. And a serial sex offender is an individual who committed the sexual assault of 2 or more victims in separate events, while a non-serial sex offender is an individual charged or convicted of crimes unrelated to sexual assault, such as robbery, homicide, etc. And lastly, CODIS uploads should not be less than CODIS hits. Again, we understand that there are situations where this may not be the case. For example, a CODIS hit may have come to your lab in a different reporting period than the profile was uploaded. And if we reach out to you about this, just let us know that this is what happened. And like we mentioned above, we reach out to grantees sometimes to ask questions or get clarifications. And a lot of times people think they've done something wrong or reported something incorrectly, but that's not necessarily the case. So please don't be alarmed if we reach out to you. And please know that Mike and I are here to support you. So if you have any questions, concerns, issues, or anything like that, please reach out. We're happy to answer via email or set up a time for a call so that we can discuss. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Tori Goldberg, and I'm going to be presenting to everyone on the Edward Burr Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program, also known as the JAG program. The JAG program is the leading source of federal justice funding to state and local jurisdictions. It provides states, tribes, and local governments with critical funding needed to support a range of program areas, including law enforcement, prosecution, courts, etc. You'll report into 2 different systems, the PMT and JUST grants. The PMT will remain open for reporting until further notice, and primary grantees or direct recipients of OJP grant funds should upload PMT reports in PDF form to primary grantees should upload PMT reports in JUST grants semi-annually or annually in accordance with the award solicitation and at closeout. In the PMT, you'll put your quarterly performance measures, and in JUST grants, you'll upload your quarterly financial reports as well as your annual, semi-annual, and final program reports. If you have questions about that, you can refer back to the slide that Amy presented on with the schedule. There are 2 different categories of JAG grantees, and each one has different reporting requirements. Category 1 are local JAG grantees, where their eligible allocation amounts are less than $25,000. Category 1 grantees report quarterly federal financial reports, quarterly PMT reports, and final PMT reports. They also report annual progress reports and final progress reports in JUST grants, and then, if applicable, an annual audit report in accordance with uniform requirements, or if there's any specific award conditions that should also be submitted. Category 2 grantees have amounts of $25,000 or more, and those are the local JAG grantees, and then all the state JAG grantees. These Category 2 grantees report in quarterly federal financial reports, quarterly PMT reports, and a final PMT report, semi-annual progress reports, and a final progress report in JUST grants. If applicable, the annual audit report in accordance with the uniform requirements. And then future awards and or fund drawdowns may be withheld if for either grant type of grantee if OJP award recipients have not submitted the required reports in a timely manner. All grantees need to complete the project progress module in January and July and again at closeout. These questions are primarily open-ended and are focused on gauging where grantees are in their grant life. Some examples of what you may use to create goals include purchases that you've made, generally describing funding use, such as purchasing 50 body-worn cameras for officers. If you're funding a program, your goals should include something more about your program's desired outcome. For example, provide services to more than 100 program participants. So depending on what type of thing you're funding, that is what type of goals you should be focusing on. Because JAG is such an extensive program with a lot of requirements, we have an FAQ available in the link that is in this deck. The FAQ is derived from commonly asked questions that take place, either questions that are sent to the help desk or questions that are given or asked during any of these sessions. You can find that link there. If your question is not answered in either today's presentation or in that FAQ, feel free to call or email the help desk and they'll forward your questions on to us if they can't answer it. There's also a bunch of additional trainings for the JAG program, which will be linked in the next slide. Again, if you're interested in additional trainings, there's an overview training, a general information training, which is this training, and then a bunch of other trainings that are recorded and posted online about your specific trainings for each specific program, or if you're a sub, or if your award is $25,000 or more, your specific type of program, whether you're law enforcement, forensics, etc. And here are a bunch of useful links if you're a JAG grantee looking for resources to check out first. The first link is to a link to our training page where you can see recorded trainings. The second link is to PDF versions of the performance measures that you would have to answer as a JAG grantee. The third link is to the JAG website overall. There's a bunch of other information on there. And then finally, if you're interested in the type of work that we do with the performance measures after you report them, you can see a PDF copy of the annual activity report for fiscal year 2020. And here's just, again, some additional contact information that you'll see throughout this presentation. If you need help specific to performance measures, if you need help with the PMT tool specifically, Just Grants specifically, and the Just Grants help desk.
Thanks, Tori. Appreciate that. So my name is Jimmy Stye. I am the deputy on this project for the analysis team for the PPI team. I am going to be presenting on the Death in Custody Reporting Act program requirements. And as many of you know that manage a JAG program, the Death in Custody reporting requirements are tied to JAG. So before I get into that, I do just want to reiterate that questions can be put into the chat box. If you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer any of those following the presentations. And I just want to say thank you all again for attending this training and participating. So BJA does require reporting from states or SAAs pursuant to the Death in Custody Reporting Act. The DCRA requires states and federal law enforcement agencies to report certain information to the Attorney General regarding the death of any person occurring during the interactions with law enforcement officers or while in custody. Federal law enforcement agencies report their death in custody incidents to BJS, and we collect everything at the state and local level through the state administering agencies. Under the Death in Custody statute, all deaths in a local or state correctional facility must be reported, as well as those occurring under arrest or during the process of an arrest. This slide details the requirements per the statute and the circumstances and locations in which a death is required to be reported. Note that a known crime or imminent charge is not a pre-qualifying event when determining if the death is reportable, so long as the decedent was in the process of being arrested or in custody. The Death in Custody data collection system can be found alongside JAG in the PMT, so it's a tag-along or additional requirement of JAG. Therefore, the designee that will comply and report death in custody data on behalf of the state or SAA must have access to the PMT and must be associated with your JAG awards. Within the reporting module under the decedent information tab, you will enter the number of decedent records you have for the given reporting period. If you do not have any decedents to enter, a response is still required. Simply select No, which will conclude the module, and you do not have to report any additional information. At this time, decedent information can be entered one at a time or in a bulk upload. To bulk upload, click the Download Template button and populate the Excel spreadsheet with decedent records. When finished, save the spreadsheet and return to the PMT, select Choose File, and click on Upload. Once you are finished adding records, click Save and Continue to move to the review page. The required data elements in the Death in Custody module track closely with what is required by law. This includes name, gender, race, ethnicity, and birth year. The name of the agency responsible for arresting or detaining the decedent, as well as brief circumstances surrounding the death, are also required. It is possible to enter unknown for the data elements, but this option should be used as sparingly as possible. Please note that when time of death is unknown, entering 0000 is acceptable. However, we will reach out to confirm that this was not just entered in error. States will need to establish their own procedures for collecting this information from local and state law enforcement and correctional agencies. Finally, we ask about manner of death and brief circumstances. Note that we offer an unavailable investigation pending option for manner of death. This can be used when you are still gathering information about the circumstances of the death. However, when manner of death is finalized, the record must be updated. Brief circumstances leading up to the death should involve location and characteristics of the incident, who was involved, and if a weapon was present. The more detail provided, the better. The slide shows an example of the circumstances surrounding a death resulting from use of force by law enforcement. The example gives time and location information, the name of police agency involved, describes the presence and threat of a weapon, and indicates that 2 officers discharged their weapons. Brief circumstances are required for all manners of death, not just those involving law enforcement. For example, if a decedent's manner of death is natural causes, an example of brief circumstances would be inmate passed at prison hospital for end-of-life care due to advanced lung cancer. Finally, as have been provided in other slides, is some materials or resources for you. So here we have some links to frequently asked questions and several videos of training and instructions for the bulk upload. With that, we'll close out the webinar and answer any questions that you have. So I'll turn it back over to Kerwin and Katie. Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy, and thank you to all of our analysts. As Jimmy mentioned, at this time, we will transition to our Q&A session. I see one question has come in already, and I think, Jimmy, this might be the best to answer this question. The first question we have on top is, so local solicitation award recipients are not required to report death in custody numbers because they will be a part of the state's reporting numbers. Is this correct?
Yes, that is correct, that local agencies are not required to report to BJA. However, you should, if you're a law enforcement agency or a state correctional agency, you should definitely get with your state SAA or state administering agency to discuss with them their reporting requirements and how to feed your data to them that can then be reported to us.
Okay, the question that we just had come in, previously we had a direction as follows. Bureau of Justice Assistance and expanded the reportable deaths to include deaths occurring during interaction with law enforcement personnel, but now you aid under arrest or in custody. Which is correct? Jenny, you might be the best to answer this one as well.
Yep. So I'm not sure, where you heard or, we're given the under arrest definition. But the specific language within death in custody is during the process of arrest. So we have a number of frequently asked questions that kind of discuss that and give examples. So the language should be interpreted as during the process of arrest or in custody, which could be a state prison.
Next question that came in is about JAG. So Tori, if you want to answer this one, the question that came in, for JAG and PMT, there's a date, November 29th, for reporting to just grants. Does this replace the January semi-annual reporting, or is this a new reporting? And Liz, you may be able to answer this as well.
Yep. Hi, everyone. This is Liz, your performance measurement systems to me. So the two systems are different. In PMT, we're collecting data quarterly. And then when you have performance reports that are due in just grants, you're going to want to take that aggregate PDF report that the PMT is going to generate for you and upload that to just grants when it's due. So there may be some differences in deadlines and due dates, but we need to collect quarterly data in the PMT to be able to respond, review the data, collect it, regularly to respond to any, data requests or congressional requests. But the due dates are going to be different than what you see in Just Grants. So you want to try to abide by both as best you can, so that we get the quarterly data in PMT and you also get your aggregate semi-annual or annual reports that are due in Just Grants. And that's usually January and July.
Thanks, Liz. The next question that came in, I think, Jenny, you should be able to answer this. Does death caused by a collision during a traffic pursuit count for DCRA?
So there's a little bit of gray area here. If it is the offender or suspect, then yes, definitely. Otherwise, if you're talking about a bystander, I want to consult on that example, and we can get back to you on that one for sure.
Thanks, Jimmy. The next question that came in, which I think is probably for you, Liz, is a question about will the current PMT reporting website transition to Just Grants in the future, which I know we have limited information on.
Yep, that is the plan. We do not have a timeline or a date on that, but certainly the minute we know, you all will know as well. But yes, the plan is to transition PMT into Just Grants when it can fully support all of the functionalities and features that we need to for performance reporting. But until then, business as usual. If you've been around, you're going to report your performance data quarterly in PMT, and then every 6 months or annually, you're going to take that aggregate PDF report and upload it as an attachment to the coinciding report that's due in Just Grants.
Thanks, Liz. Of another question that came in, and Liz, this might be you too. With late award notice of new grants, will we adjust reporting date requirements?
That's a great question. We do not have any guidance on that yet. We do know that awards are coming in and being accepted. We add awards once accepted to the PMT if they're a program required to report in the PMT. So once any new awards are added, we will be notifying you. With regards to reporting deadlines, that could potentially be delayed or, receive an extension, but until we have official guidance on that, we'll let you know.
Thanks, Liz. So we have another question that came through, and this one is probably for you, Tori. For JAG and PMT, there's a date, November 29th, for reporting to Just Grants. Does this replace the January semi-annual reporting, or is this a new reporting period? And Liz, this might be for you as well. So,
yeah, I believe I answered this question, but I can again. So PMT and Just Grants are separate systems. PMT is going to collect your performance data quarterly, and that schedule usually does not change, but with the PMTs then every 6 months or annually, depending on your solicitation reporting schedule in Just Grants, the PMT is going to create an aggregate data report, and you're going to want to take that PDF and upload it to Just Grants and matching up with the award number as well as the reporting period, making sure the data matches to the reporting period. And that's usually due in Just Grants in January and July. So the reporting periods and schedules, will be different, but try to quarterly report, meet the schedule in PMT and then upload to Just Grants when due, and that's usually in January and July.
Excellent. Thank you, Liz. We have another question about where can I find detailed instructions on entering and using the PMT system? We actually on Tuesday have a different training session on the PMT that will be available shortly and posted to both the BJA YouTube channel as well as the BJA multimedia page. And we shared our, I think the PMT website link earlier in the chat, and we'll be sure to send out those resources again following the presentation today. I have a few more questions that look like they came in. Why does the PMT page have quarterly report stats created to view just grant report when it is only semi-annually?
I believe that's just a user interface label header. So every quarter we call it a just grants report, but it's only due every 6 months. And you should also see an additional note next to the reporting period on the federal awards page that lets you know when you should be uploading that report to just grants.
One more question came in. For the JAG PMT, in the past, if there's an error in the info submitted, historically all contacts, in my case, city manager on down, get a message about this error. Typically, it is a minor thing that needs adjustment. The question is, why can you not simply reach out to the person who submits the report? This all points alarm creates some issues that don't have to be created.
The way that our automated generated emails in the system is set up is to send a message to all. That also kind of aligns with when we send reporting reminders, we want to make sure that we're reaching everyone. It may be that you may need to take a look at your manage users profile page to make sure that that list is up to date, but that's how the generated automated email is designed to work in the system, is to send notices to all individuals associated with the account so that, you know, whoever may need to be notified or aware of is included. And we're not missing anybody.
There's another question that came in about instructions for using the PMT system. We have resources on the BJA Performance Management website, as well as a recent training on Tuesday that we recorded and will be posted shortly, detailing use of on the PMT system. Okay, it looks like we've slowed down with the questions, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And we hope that you all have a great rest of the day. Let us know via email if you have any questions or issues with the resources that we send out following today's presentation. Thank you all for attending.